Welcome back. This is Tea or Coffee on High Impact Television. Thank you for staying tuned to us. Right about now, we're going to kickstart an interview, and we're talking about preventing suicide, the role of stakeholders. Now, it's important that we talk about this because in the news that we've been taking, we hear people committing suicide, and according to World Health Organization, like 800,000 people die due to from suicide, and we also have it as the third leading cause of death for people between the ages of 15 to 19 years old. So it's important that we have this discussion, and then we want to know what the role of stakeholders are in preventing suicide. And to do that with us, we have Sheil Dosumu. He is a mental health advocate. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. You guys have gorgeous smiles.
Thank you. Okay, so now let's kickstart what we want to talk about today.
Okay.
Firstly, I want to know now, who is a stakeholder in regards to suicide prevention?
Okay, speaking of stakeholders when it comes to suicide prevention, I don't have to think about it. I think we are all stakeholders, from the family members to friends, to the media, to the government, to the healthcare professional, to neighbors, to every single person that has contact with the individual who has suicide ideations.
All right, talking about being a stakeholder, you know, sometimes you have to talk to people who are towing that line of committing suicide. So how do you draw the line? You know, we are all human beings, and then it gets to a point where maybe you're asking questions too much about them, about their issues, and then it gets to a point where they just stop talking to you, and then you're not able to rescue them anymore. So where do you draw that line of talking to them, of pestering them in quote, when it comes to their issues?
Okay, so this is it. A lot of times from conversations that I've had with people who have had suicide attempts, I realize, yeah, it's clear that we're short of mental health experts, meaning we have about 250 to 200 million, which is ridiculous. But more importantly, I think we also need to be intentional about learning how to converse with someone who thinks suicide is the only option left. I like I said, I'm not a mental health expert, but I've been on several groups and I've identified individuals who are struggling with their mental health. So what do? I send them a message personally, and I try to be as a friend as possible, having, you know, very sincere conversations around what's going on, why do you think this is going on, what would you want to do? And you know, sometimes I'm amazed at the reactions that I get. They open up and tell me a whole lot of things. You know, so I feel as stakeholders, we just have to be more interested in people. Many people don't know how to converse. I think that's the major problem. So you realize, you discover someone is struggling with his or her mental health, and you just want immediate response. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why are you crying? Why are you crying? You know, that's not the best way to engage. You know, you need to understand where the issues are coming from. Some people have extra years in the university because of a lecturer's, you know, a lecturer's
making advances,
flaws, or the institution's flaws. Now, this person who has never thought he or she is a failure at a point in his life, now would have an extra year. So you don't know what this person is going through, and next thing you say, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's there? What's there? Anyway, you get those kind of things. So I think the major problem is how you converse with
them.
Okay, so when it comes to suicide prevention, would you say that it has to do, and as a stakeholder, when you're trying to help them, would you say that it has to do with their personality type, the kind of person they are? Because now you have said that sometimes people keep on pestering and saying, tell me, and the person is withholding, the person doesn't want to talk. But maybe you would agree with me that there are some people that it's until when you pester them and they begin to open up to you. So would you say that in trying to prevent suicide and reach out to the person who is suicidal, that it has to do with the personality type or personality traits of the person?
Well, to an extent, you can say personality type,
Okay.
which is just one of. But like back to what I said, you need to know who this person is.
Okay.
Does he talk? Does he prefer a one-on-one conversation? Does he prefer phone calls? Is he more comfortable with text messages? And it has to do with you deliberately learning and understanding who the person is. Like I said, oftentimes many people do not understand these things. And because we live in a very hostile environment, many individuals are not supportive. So when someone who is not very supportive comes asking you questions about why you think suicide is do you think you would speak? Even if he or she is speaking with the calmest tone, you won't, because this person has a track record of not being supportive, has a track record of stigmatizing people for underperforming, has a track record of, making mockery around people's flaws. So you know this person for who or she, you understand? You find it hard to speak out because you know there's a likelihood that if you say what the real problems are, things might get worse.
Yeah. So apart from conversations, how else can we help nullify a suicide attempt?
Apart from conversations for me, I think goes a long way.
Okay.
Because if you're a family member, you ought to know when things are good and when things are bad. If we live in the same house, you ought to be able to sense when I'm happy and when I'm not very happy. And this is where it really starts.
Okay.
This is where it really, really starts. Somebody is depressed because depression is linked to suicide in some way. Many suicide victims are usually depressed before they. So, you know when someone is having inconsistent moods and you don't pay attention to it. So, there was a time I had the privilege to speak to some teenagers, and I did an assessment around, okay, if you have any issue now, how many of you will run to your mother? About 20 plus of them, maybe 5 raised their hands. I now, flipped again, like, okay, if any of you have any pressing issues now, how many of you will run to your dad? About 5 again. So what I concluded was that there's a communication gap in the house or at home. And now home is supposed to be one of the safest places where we have conversations around any kind of issue. But there's a communication gap. One of them, after my speech, actually walked up to me and told me, you know what, my dad and my mom, they're just too busy. They don't listen to me. My dad thinks every time I come to him is about money. My mom is busy. She works in a hospital or something. That she prefers, going to her uncle's place. So for me, I just felt there's a serious problem in that family. Because, for instance, if the uncle ends up molesting her, touching her, you mean she won't have the chance to go back home to tell her parents. And these are cases that leads to, one day saying, you know what, my uncle that I even trusted did this to me, and I can't go back home to tell my parents, even if they know they're going to stigmatize me. So you lose your self-worth, and you start to think taking your life is the next option. So, aside from conversations, awareness, seeking professional help, and a host of other things. But I believe conversations would go a long way.
All right.
Okay, so now what are the key components of a suicide, prevention strategy that a stakeholder, needs to know?
Strategies, we've heard so much about individuals who are ready to take their lives or attempt suicide, saying they want to use the news, they want to drink. Now, I can't. Many people have other ways, or rather just jump into the lagoon. which is like faster, or even, you know, consuming. These are strategies, you know, for some of these guys. So for stakeholders, yeah, we are aware of these things, and because some of them have attempted it before, we have to just be honest about a lot of things. Because, like I said, I'm not a mental health expert, but the stories I've heard, like we're planning for our annual mental health summit, which is the Work and Emotional Balance Conference. And majorly what we do with that is just to engage mental health experts, mental health advocates, and survivors of mental illness. You won't believe that this year's edition has attracted so many people, because the theme is actually preventing suicide. And I've had many people, you know, chat me up, can I be part of this? Can I be part of this? You know what, I have a personal story. I failed my WAEC in secondary school, and I couldn't go back home. I was the blackhead of the family, this, that. And then another person goes, I'm a stage director. You know, I've had, I think, one of the team members. You know, all of these things I hear without being a mental health expert, just for being an advocate. I've had people confide in me about their numerous challenges of how they cut themselves, and I'm saying, you know what, just hold on, step out, take a walk, just find the nearest hangout spot, relax, do something different. Now, I didn't have to learn this. I just felt that was a good way to...
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what is prompting you to hold that conference. You know, that is held on November 23rd. Yeah.
So I honestly feel stakeholders, everyone has a role to play. Unfortunately, we live in a very hostile environment. We have many Nigerians who are not caring. I listened to, before I came on, I was the NYSC, the driver, someone who said Nigerians are poor, Nigerians are bitter. You know, these are kind of things you hear every day, bad news, people stigmatizing a group of people because of their status. So these are issues every day that affects, you know, one's mental health and makes one to consider suicide as just the only option.
All right. So the Emotional Balance Conference will be coming up in November. The flyer will be displayed on the screen. And we're happy to tell you that High Impact Television is a major partner to this event. So before we let you go, can you please give a last word to someone who is, did I say last word? A word of advice to someone who is considering suicide out there?
I think there should be a spin around the last word to somebody who is considering. I think for all stakeholders, we should actually have, you know, a word for all stakeholders. Whether you are a brother, you are a sister, you are a colleague, a lecturer in the university, a government official, healthcare professional. We all have a significant role to play in preventing suicide. It's not a coincidence that this year, on World Suicide Prevention Day, the conversation was around preventing suicide. On mental health day, the theme was preventing suicide. And next year, you know, the theme has also been released for World Mental Health Day, which is mental health, assessing health of stuff. So it's a serious conversation that is happening globally. So the word out there is, whether you're a brother, a sister, a friend, a church member, a pastor, you have to honestly and genuinely be interested in people, understand their situations, ask questions, engage them, and support in any way you can. Don't be part of those that will stigmatize and mock people for failing, mock people for breaking up in relationships.
To enjoy more interesting episodes of Tea or Coffee, then like and subscribe.
Someone who is not very supportive comes asking you questions about why you think suicide is do you think you would speak? Even if he or she is speaking with the calmest tone,